Welcome into 6 must-start flex players for Week 8 of fantasy football. I'm your host, Josh, here, joined by Alec. As always, Alec, last week we had a couple big hitters. We had a couple hat tricks on the show last week. We had Quinshon Judkins as a must-start with a hat trick. We had Devontae Adams who was as a must-start who had a hat trick, a couple of hat tricks. We're not going to have that every week and with our must-starts here. But we have 6 more guys here for Week 8. There are a lot of players on bye weeks, a lot of big-name players on bye weeks, still injuries kicking in as well. So this is where you maybe have to go deeper into your bench. You maybe have to start a guy that you didn't want to start. We have 6 guys that are must-start players. This is not going to be your Justin Jeffersons, who's playing tonight on Thursday Night Football. But these are going to be your flex options, right? These are going to be your guys, wide receiver 2, 3, 4 on your team, running back 2, 3, 4 on your team. Having said that, Alec, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to you for your first player of the show here.
Yeah, so I'm going to have a theme this week. I'm chasing defenses that I like players against. So that's kind of my theme this week, as kind of like a little spoiler alert. So I like J.K. Dobbins this week against the Cowboys. Cowboys are giving up 141 rushing yards a game. And, you think, okay, maybe this is a week for R.J. Harvey to get going. He only had 4 rush attempts last week for 0 yards.
Yep.
So he's not even really involved in this offense. The only game that he was involved was a Cincinnati game that they were just a blowout instantly. So I love J.K. Dobbins this week. I think he's worth maybe an RB2 play if a couple bye weeks are happening, maybe even a flex play. I think J.K. Dobbins could have a good week this week.
Yeah, no, I completely love it. The Dallas rushing defense is something that we've probably targeted, for a while now, right? And it's something that they performed actually decent against JCM, but JCM is kind of in a weird spot right now, right? So last week I would look past that, but J.K. Dobbins is the guy that's going to be getting the goal line touches here, and he's in a spot where he's going to be getting at least probably 70% of the touches out of the backfield, if not more, against a bottom 3, 4 rushing defense in the league. I absolutely love it here too. I also think that the way that Denver is going to play this big game, I like the fact that they're going to run the ball, right? I would look back to kind of a similar style of how they played against Philly, right? When J.K. Dobbins had 20 rushes that game, right? When you play against these better opponents where it's going to be a tighter game, I think they're going to lean on that running game. And I really, really think that even if they don't lean on the running game all that much, with 15 touches out of J.K. Dobbins, he's going to be very fantasy relevant. I want to make sure I'm not going against my word too much, because my first guy here is Courtland Sutton up against the Dallas Cowboys as well. Sorry if you're a Cowboys fan listening to the show, but your defense stinks right now. Sorry. Shouldn't have traded Micah Parsons. So the Dallas passing defense is the worst in the league right now. I believe giving up around 270 passing yards a game, which is an absurd number. Like, that is an extremely high number. And Courtland Sutton is coming out of 4 of his last 5 games. He's gone 15 plus in points in PPR, right? The one game is the one that he played at 9:30 in the morning over in Europe against the Jets when they had 82 total yards of offense. The Jets did. That was a game in which Courtland Sutton could have put up 2.8 points like what he did, I believe, and they won the game. That's not going to happen very often, and it's certainly not going to happen against Dallas, right? Dallas can score. So I think that Courtland Sutton up in this matchup up against Dallas, you're getting a wide receiver that when they have had any game that's normal, right? I would say that the game against the Jets in Europe, that's an outlier. That's not going to happen probably for the rest of the season for Denver. So it might happen for the Jets, not for Denver. But I think Courtland Sutton's in a spot where he's going to get the 8 to 10, if not more, targets as the alpha in this Denver offense for Bo Nix. And going up against the worst passing defense in the league, that's all that needs to be said. I'm going to take 6 targets against this defense because they give up so many chunk plays. Courtland Sutton is somebody that I could very easily see hitting 2, 3, maybe even 4 20-plus yard chunk plays. And if he gets in the end zone, he's going for 20-plus this week.
Yeah, and my second guy it's very similar to what Courtland Sutton is this week. I'm targeting Odunze against the Ravens this week. Ravens are giving up almost 250 passing yards a game. We've seen them be awful.
Yes.
Awful on defense this year. Their injuries have decimated them. Roquan Smith's actually coming back this week, but doesn't really do much for the outside guys. So, yeah, I love Rome this week. I think that Caleb's going to kind of get it back on track this week from the passing yards perspective. Rome was hot through what was it? The first 4 weeks he was hot.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's cooled off a little bit, but that's also, the Bears run game's kind of been up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But if the one thing the Ravens can slightly do is stop the run. So I think the Bears might try to open it back up this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And DeAndre Swift ran very well for the last couple of weeks too. So I
And
wouldn't be
Monungai.
and Monungai, dude. Both of them have ran very well. So no, I really, really like that. I think it's a spot where I like the volume, and when you like the volume there, and you match up the defense, right? When we're matching volume with a defense that you like to target, that's where it's good, right? If you're matching high volume against a passing defense that's elite, right? Like maybe Atlanta's, right? I'm not going to necessarily love somebody that's going to get 6 targets, 8 targets, 10 targets against Atlanta. There's going to have to be something else in there. So I love this situation, though, for Rome. Wouldn't be surprised if he gets back on that hot train and ends up with another 15-plus point week.
Yeah, for sure. And this is like where we got dialed in last year. Remember, we went on that hot streak last year. Yeah. We finally got data to show us, okay, who's bad at defense, who's good at defense, and kind of just exploited the matchups. Right. That's where we got hot. So that's why people got to, hey, listen, some of these takes, Rome has been cold. This is the week for him to get back.
Yes.
It's data driven. It's like, I feel like I'm playing fantasy baseball.
Yeah, it is. It is data driven, but we have data now. And exactly to your point, even what we saw last week, right? Last week we had 6 guys, and one of them was Rico Dowdle, who we assumed Chuba Hubbard was not going to play. Hubbard played, and Dowdle still put up nearly 10 points, right? So I'm assuming that's one where once you saw Hubbard was playing, people didn't start him. But we went for outperforming projections 5 out of 6 last week, right, with data. So in the one that we missed was the JCM against Dallas's rushing defense, which –
and the data still was right for that technically.
Right. And that's what I'm going to say is if you gave it to me again, I would still take it. So no, I love that. And another one, this is going to be one that I'm going to save one of my favorite guys for last. This is one that maybe is not as popular. It's Alvin Kamara against Tampa Bay. And I understand that the statistic that people might look at, and it's a common statistic that people will look at, right, is Tampa Bay's 11th in rushing defense. And before Detroit, they were top 5 rushing yards defense, right? I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs broke an 82-yarder. They're averaging, I think, a little over 100 yards given up in a game right now. So that was their game right there, right? Was in one run. But this Tampa Bay defense cannot defend running backs out of the backfield. And Alvin Kamara, his entire time in the league, has been absolutely excellent. Probably the best in the league since Jahmyr Gibbs got there, I would say, and maybe CMC for a couple seasons too, of receiving out of the backfield. And Alvin Kamara up against these linebackers for Tampa Bay, I don't know what it is about them. They just cannot cover. And I think that the Saints are going to lean on this a lot. It was exploited before the Detroit week. It was really exploited this past week against Detroit. I understand Alvin Kamara maybe doesn't have the burst that Jahmyr Gibbs does, but he is plenty good in the receiving game, probably more crafty in the receiving game. I would expect Rattler to have probably 2 to 3, if not even more, screens to Kamara. Also, not even mentioning Kendra Miller towards ACL, unfortunately, out for the season. So, yes, Devin Neal is going to get some touches. He is going to ease into that RB2. Probably not this week too much because Kamara is going to get a ton of the workload. I really, really like this situation for Kamara. I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up 10, 11, or 12 points out of receiving alone.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, Servassier Dennis and a 35-year-old Devontae David are the Bucs linebackers.
Right.
They're not going to be able to cover Alvin Kamara. They're just not. Not.
Levante David certainly cannot. Levante David 4 years ago could. Let me get that straight. Levante David 4 years ago when Tampa Bay was making their run, when they were winning Super Bowls, yes, he could. Right now, 35-year-old Levante David.
It's like the Bobby Wagner argument. Like Bobby Wagner can still tackle great, but they're kind of in the same boat. They just can't cover. So yeah, they just can't. But yeah, so my last guy here, I'm going back to the well, and it's because of the matchup. Okay, so this is the only guy we missed on projection last week. It's Rico Dowdle. I'm going back to him this week. Bills give up 156 rushing yards a game. Mm-hmm. That's second worst in the NFL. So honestly, if you said, hey, I'm playing 2 flexes this week. I'm in a 2 flex league. Should I start Rico Dowdle or Chuba? Like, I would want to start both, to be honest with you. But Rico Dowdle, I think, is the main guy now. So the split last week, technically Chuba Hubbard wasn't on their injury report. So he was off the injury report. So we're just going to deem that he was healthy enough to be off the injury report. Rico Dowdle got 54% of the snaps compared to Chuba's 46. I think that Rico's going to be their kind of 1A for the rest of the year. So in a game where, a team's given up 156 yards, I don't care that Andy Dalton's starting. Like, I really think that, Rico Dowdle has a chance to kind of pop off again.
Yeah, no, I think what Rico Dowdle did, obviously he had his Jay Ajayi run, as I referred to it last week,
Yeah.
in weeks 5 and 6. But what he did last week is he showed that, okay, well, Chuba's back. I'm still the guy here. I'm the better back, is what he showed at least last week, right? So I think what Dowdle showed is, yes, I'm valuable when I have my standalone value, right, as the true bell cow running back. But when I'm not the true bell cow running back, I still have value here. And absolutely exactly what you're saying. This Bills defense is so beat up right now, especially in their front seven, that I would expect that the entire Carolina game plan is how can we establish the run, especially with Andy Dalton at quarterback. I understand maybe you're putting 8 in the box a lot more for the Bills. I don't think it's going to matter. I think that the way that this Carolina team also has shown some really real good progression when it comes to run blocking in the last 3 weeks, right? Rico Dowdle is not a running back that if he's getting hit behind the line of scrimmage like Ashton Genty is for the Raiders, can run for 200 yards. You're running for 200 yards because A, you're getting a lot of carries. B, probably A, there are holes to run through. B, you're getting a lot of carries. So I love it for Dowdle there. The matchup is great. If there's substantial volume, which I really think there will be, I fully see him having a great week this week.
Yeah, and that's I'm also kind of projecting that they just don't get blown out.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So if they're somewhat in the game, I mean, like a 75% chance of somewhat being in the game, then then I could see him going for a lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. My final guy here, and this is I know we kind of joked about it last week. This is actually the last week we will have him in the show because the stats that I have for you here are pretty mind-boggling. So Rashee Rice against Washington here. Washington's defense is 25th. Their passing defense is 25th in the league. So definitely bottom half, right? Bottom quarter.
Fourth.
Yeah, bottom quarter of the league. And last week, the Chiefs absolutely blew out the Raiders at 31-0, I believe was the score. Rashee Rice didn't step on the field in the fourth quarter. He played 41% of snaps, not because of injury. I want to clarify, not because he's coming back from his torn ACL, but because he didn't need to play, and he still had 10 targets. I understand he had 2 touchdowns, right? That's something that's not going to happen every week. If he is in a game in which he has to play in the fourth quarter or even really play in the third quarter because he didn't have to do anything in the third quarter, Rashee Rice is going to be absolutely electric in your lineup. From here on out, other than week 10 on their bye, Rashee Rice should not leave your lineup. That's, the final thing. He is officially banned from the show after this week because he is one of the guys at the beginning of the show when I say this isn't your Justin Jeffersons. It is not now no longer your Justin Jeffersons or your Rashee Rices because he's stuck in your lineup.
Yeah, he now this is like remember when we said it kind of like a Judkins, like he probably should be in your lineup every week anyway.
Yeah.
Rashee Rice is like Judkins on steroids. He's permanently banned from the show after this week because he's going to go off.
Yeah.
And then I know you drafted him not to technically be like a wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 for you, but theoretically he probably will become your wide receiver 1, at least 1B.
Yes. And if you drafted him, I know I'm in a couple leagues where I'm in a tough situation, right? Where it's 2 wide receivers, 1 flex. Mm-hmm. And I have, I hit on JSN and I have Rashee Rice and then I have somebody else like Sutton. Or I had another one where I have Egbuka and I have JSN, Rashee Rice, and like the one I had Jamar in. Because and it's like,
that's a good problem to have, though.
It's a good problem to have, and especially in this time, right, when you have bye weeks coming in, you have injuries coming in, right, sitting Egbuka last week. I know he played, but, you didn't know if he was going to, sitting him. So it's nice to have, but at the same time, that's when you start to say, okay, when can I package one of these guys and go solve a problem on my team, right? Like, for example, I have Drake May at quarterback. Drake May has been a great quarterback, but how can I take Devontae Adams and Drake May and go get an elite quarterback, right? How can I go get a Josh Allen? So, that's side rant there, but a good problem to have for now. But those are our 6 guys here for week 8. I think we have a really good chance, Alec. Again, like you said, this is when we started to really dial it in last year. And the last couple of weeks have been really dialed into barely missing on 1 or 2 players at most. So I really like our chances here. But other than that, this has been the Sports Geeks podcast. They play, we talk. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.